We are minutes away from learning the judge's decision on the mistrial motion made by the defense in Illinois versus Drew Peterson. Now, I want to let you know we're not allowed to have cameras inside the courtroom during the trial, but our in-session team will be inside, emailing updates throughout the day. We're reading those to you, so as they come in, we'll add that information as well to the bottom of your screen. So just keep an eye on the bottom. We'll catch you up there, and I'll also catch you up as much as I can from what we learn from inside the courtroom. For the moment, I want to bring back our panel. In-session correspondent Gene Casares, trial attorney Karen Conti, criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool, and in-session contributor and former Peterson trial judge Stephen White. Now, Brian Claypool, let me start with you. You know, when we just had Joe Hosey on, I think he is probably reflecting what a lot of people out there feel, which is, hey, you know what? Drew Peterson set up this intimidation pattern with people. He was trying to get at his wife and make things difficult for her. So why is the judge coming in and not letting this stuff happen? Why can't this come into this trial? Tell us what you think about that.
Hey, Ryan, having seen the exact question asked by Ms. Patton of Mr. Ponarelli, I now firmly believe that the judge should not declare a mistrial for this reason. Her question was, do you feel intimidated by Drew Peterson? That was the question. His answer was yes. At that moment, the defense lawyers for Drew Peterson should have jumped up and stopped the answer right after that. Right after yes, they should have stopped. Everything after yes should be stricken. And I think what we have here is a witness who just voluntarily gave this information. I don't think you can prove a connection or a nexus between the prosecutor telling him to say this and the witness saying this. I think that's a huge leap. Now, if Ms. Patton had asked the question, hey, did you find a .38 caliber bullet in your driveway? Now, if she asked that question, then I think you've got grounds for mistrial. But the way that question was asked and the witness went off, I don't think you've got grounds for a mistrial now. And I think everybody here needs to start focusing on the fact that you can't have a perfect trial all the time. You can't insulate jurors from every single piece of evidence. You simply clear this up by asking this individual, do you know where that bullet came from? No. Do you know whether Peterson shot that bullet? No. Then the problem is fixed.
So that's it right there. But Brian, doesn't the jury then still hear that and say, well, I don't know, a bullet in a driveway? And that's why I keep bringing up, Brian, that example of the mob movie, because that's where we make those identifications in life. We see something and we say, oh, I remember that from something else. And then I wonder if these jurors, their mind starts to spiral a little bit.
Yeah, but Ryan, there are jury instructions that are given to the jury. A good defense lawyer is going to get up in closing argument. You know what he'll say? He'll say is, look, these folks are so desperate, the prosecution is so desperate, they have to bring up an incident in a driveway where they have no evidence to support this. You could actually spin this in a positive way for Mr. Peterson, number one. Number two, jurors are reminded that only evidence is to be considered in making a decision. You remind the jury, you made a deal with me. You got to follow the law. There's no evidence before you that Peterson had anything to do with this .38 caliber bullet. You test the conscience of the jury. Remind them of that. This is just a smokescreen. Desperation. They're throwing anything they got up against the wall to try to get my client guilty. You use this in a positive way.
It's an interesting point, Brian, and you're convincing me here. So Gene Casares, I think Brian makes a great point about how when you look at the words on the page, it just seems like this guy blurted this out. But then why do you think the judge seems to think it's purposeful?
There's more to the story, and I was sitting in that courtroom so I can tell you the whole story, and I'm glad I was right that he just blurted it out, because that's what I thought. I thought he just on his own elicited it, which he did, but then Elizabeth Parker admitted during argument that that is exactly where she was going, that that was exactly what she wanted him to say, and that she fully intended to then continue to question him about, but you don't know who put it there, you don't know, and you can't conclusively say it was Drew Peterson. So she admitted that she knew that. Furthermore, in the hearsay hearing back in 2010, she questioned that witness, this witness, Tom, on the stand, and she questioned him about the bullet, and he said, yes, there was a bullet, it was point up in the driveway, but I don't know where it came from, I can't tell you who put it there. So that even more so showed the judge that she knew that they could not put it all together.
Huh, interesting. So, Brian, I got to go back to you. You hear the context that Jean just gave. It's exactly what you were talking about, but she did mean to have it come out. So then what do you think?
Well, but I think that Jean also just said that she was going to establish that Pontarelli doesn't know where the bullet came from.
Just
to
like
me,
you
that's
just said.
That's the monumental piece of evidence here that would support the fact that the judge should not grant a mistrial. Even though she was going down that road, she was going to make it clear that Pontarelli doesn't know where the bullet came from. That, to me, solves the problem.
But Karen Conti, I'm going to play devil's advocate based on what Brian just said. I'm going to say that a jury hears the bullet on the driveway, and even though the other questions are coming, especially now that the trial has been stopped at that moment, the jury's got it locked in their minds. They've got that bullet in the driveway locked in their minds, that stunned expression on Drew Peterson's face hearing that locked in their minds. What do you think?
I think we can be overthinking this a little bit. Listen, how many times have you found a bullet in your driveway? I mean, really. And we're talking about a police officer. I mean, obviously the jurors are going to be putting this together. And this is a circumstantial evidence case. There's no literally smoking gun here. So the jury is going to have to use all of these pieces of evidence to determine whether or not Drew Peterson murdered Kathleen Savio. First of all, whether it was a murder or an accident, then whether or not he did it. And I'm telling you, this, of course the jury's going to think that. We can parse it all we want as lawyers and journalists or whatever, but the jury is thinking that. Of course they are. The toothpaste is out of the tube. I think this is a serious problem.
All right, and Judge Stephen White, I got to tell you, this is why I really love having you as a contributor, because I can ask you now, how would you rule?
How would I rule? Well, you know, like I said, you'd have to take a look at the context in which it was. Now, if the exact words that he used was, yes, I got his message, directly implying it to Drew, now that could be corrected with further questioning. He may give, if he denies the motion for mistrial, may give Ms. Patton a little leeway to lead him so that it comes out correctly what they were actually trying to show, and that if the bullet is there, that, you know, they have a right to question him with that if the proper circumstances exist. Now the question is what relevance does that bullet have to the death of Kathleen Savio? It may have something to do with how Thomas Pontarelli felt about Drew Peterson or how he was intimidated by him, but is that a direct link to the then death of Kathleen Savio? And what the time frame that was there, it's relatively close to the time in which she is found dead, but you know, that could be a little stretch there.
Huh. So Judge,
I think he's going to deny the motion.
You think he's going to deny the motion? You think he'll give that instruction to the jury? You think he'll?
I don't know what instruction he'll give to the. I don't know what instruction he'll give to the jury. I don't know what the defense will ask as far as the instruction. But if it can be cleared up with further questioning, you know, that he didn't know where it came from, it was just there. You know, it is a circumstantial case. That is a circumstance that is there. What's the jury going to draw from it? You know, they'll probably draw that Drew put it there. But you know, as long as he clears it up that he didn't know where it came from, you know, it was just there one day. It could have come, you know, from anybody. Anybody could have been playing a joke on him at that point, knowing the contentious divorce that was going on.
Now, Judge, talk to us about a mistrial. Is it kind of in your mind as a judge the very last thing you want to do? And so you hold it in this position of, hey, it's got to be real extreme in order for me to grant something like that.
Yes, it does have to be extreme. I mean, when they ask for a mistrial, if you declare a mistrial, now they're, of course, asking for it with prejudice, which is even more rare. But if they ask for a mistrial and it's granted, then you have to reassemble everybody. Like I said, you know, you have a lot of publicity here. A lot of people now in this county are listening to all the coverage here of the trial. So, you know, would you have to move it? So you know, it's going to be a very cautious call on Judge Bramilla's part, because I know he would like to see this trial come to a conclusion. Now, if they make the motion for it, it's still preserved for appeal. It's still preserved for post-trial motions if Drew Peterson was convicted. So that issue is still there, even if he denies the motion for a mistrial at this time.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Folks out there watching our coverage right now, we expect a ruling to be in the next 5 minutes or so. Judge Bramilla expected to be in the courtroom then. He has said he's going to rule on the motion for a mistrial, so that's coming up.